The opt-in is allowed. Michael Emanuele, that's who we are live with right now. Well, we're not, I guess if you're listening to this as a recording, it's not live, but you and I are live now. Anyone listening kind of gets it. Michael, how did you get into this freaking seat? How have we met? You got to tell me that. How old are you?
33.
Come into the mic. Pull the mic. There we go. 33 years old. Where did you go to school?
High school, I went actually here in Oakville.
You grew up in Oakville?
Mississauga first.
Okay. Mississauga. Where in Mississauga did you grow up?
Credit View in Eglinton.
No way.
So close to square one.
Huh. What high school?
High school, I didn't go. Just elementary school.
Okay. And then you went to Oakville?
Moved to Oakville.
What high school here?
Iroquois Ridge.
You went to Iroquois Ridge?
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
And then where did you go to university?
So I went to Sheridan College.
Sheridan College, Oakville campus, Brampton.
Brampton campus, so the Davis campus. They're the ones that had the architectural program there.
Okay.
Which is actually interesting how the stars sort of aligned. So for high school, I was meant to go to St. Joseph's High School that's on Credit View. And my parents decided to move to Oakville. And sort of by happenstance, Iroquois Ridge had an architecture like general elective. So instead of taking shop or home ec or one of those other classes, auto, they had architecture.
And it was architecture and not like drafting?
It was mainly drafting,
okay.
But so you kind of started off small, learning AutoCAD, doing, I don't know, all the basic type of skills.
Okay.
So the different commands and learning that, and then it kind of expanded into doing floor plans. Huh. And that's where I caught the bug. I've always been artistic. As a kid, being left-handed, I guess that's what they say, that left-handed people are supposed to be more
geez,
artsy.
You're one of those. Nick's left-handed. Yeah, you guys are the best. We get it.
Yeah, me and my wife actually are both left-handed.
Oh, geez. Double threat.
Yeah, right. So growing up, I was always very creative, had that imagination, played with a lot of Legos, built a lot of things with Legos. So that kind of translated, that interest grew into the architecture. And then from there, I was always interested, watching my dad at home. He was a mechanic. He's retired now, but always working on things, building, finishing basements in our houses, right? Well, the one in Mississauga, the one in Oakville too, then eventually the one in Milton. So just growing up around that kind of DIY, had an interest in building, watching Home Improvement with Tim Allen too.
Yeah, I remember. That was good.
Tool time. So yeah, that's kind of how it evolved. The first crack after high school, I went to take the architectural technology program at Sheridan College. Wasn't ready for it, too immature, flunked out of it. Went to work with my brother. I had been doing it over the summers during high school.
This base, if you knock it, it's going to make that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So I was doing hard labor, doing interlocked landscaping. So when I flunked out, let's say.
You learned quick.
I learned quick. I actually hurt my back, sprained my spine, and strained a muscle along the spine. I was like, that day was the last day that I said.
How long were you out for when you did that?
Fortunately, after a round of physio, it was pretty good. So it wasn't too bad. I wasn't bedridden or anything. It was just painful. Yeah. So I had the proper meds.
I sprained my back for the first time a few months ago, and it's just not pretty. Like I could barely move for a couple of weeks. It was nasty. Yeah.
It's probably a little different at 18, 19 years old versus...
totally, than 50. Yeah, no, I get it. You're right. That's a nice way of saying you're old, Tom, but I get it. Okay, so you did that, and that taught you that hard labor kind of is hard.
Exactly.
And that drove you back into school?
Exactly.
With a new purpose.
New purpose, more focus, more drive to succeed.
And what was the program at Sheridan?
Architectural technology. Oh, so they had two versions of it. One was the 2-year program, and the other one was a 3-year with co-op. You didn't actually have to do the co-op. So what I did to make up for the lost time of having flunked out before and then working and then picking it up a couple of years later is I did 7 straight semesters through it.
Oh, wow.
So consecutive, no summers off, awesome. No in between. Yeah. So that really took its toll, but mission accomplished.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And so then you came out of that at what age? That would have been
22, 23.
Oh, 23, like that early. Oh, 23.
April 2013.
And then do you get a job then working in this field?
Yes.
Where were you working?
Yes. So I was working for a firm downtown, Adamson Associates.
Okay.
They're a global company, so they have offices all around.
And what kind of work are you doing for a company like that with that type of education?
So it was drafting.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the entry level role.
And they're giving you, like, are you making new drawings, or are you like doing quoting or estimates based on other drawings for projects for people?
So basically their role is the architect of record. So what happens is you have the actual architect, the designer, who creates the design package and then hands it over to the architect of record, and they're the ones who develop all of the construction documents that would not only go in for permit, but would also go to site.
So when I was on the job site looking at blueprints, you're the people making those blueprints?
Exactly.
Holy shit, dude. You know how many times they were off? And when you're on this site, I can't tell you how many condominiums I worked on, and you're building a wall, and the wall of this hallway is supposed to line up with like the elevator shaft, you know, something that's immovable, and it's off by like 2 inches. And you're like, who the heck are these architects? What is happening?
Is that the drawings or is that the formsman?
And that's always what would happen. That is what you just said is always what would happen. Some architect or somebody, whoever would come on scene. I was a student at this point, so I don't know what their designation was. And the foreman on the job site would be arguing with this architect or engineer or whoever it was. And I used to love that. But the construction crew always figured it out. Like, we always got it done. We always kind of jimmied it up a little bit so that everything kind of lined up. But cool. So you did that kind of work. Awesome. And then you were there for several years?
So I was there for about 18 months.
That's it?
That's it.
Why? You just had enough?
So I didn't like what I was doing anymore. I fell out of love with that type of work. So just being behind the computer every single day. The other part of it was there would be constant revisions from the architect that you'd have to reiterate over and over again. So you're working on the same.
It's monotony.
thing. Exactly. So it's a little bit not where the action is.
And then where did you go after that?
So I decided to get into project management as part of the architectural technology program at Sheridan. They had a couple of courses dedicated to project management, so 1 and 2. And I was interested in being more of a boots on the ground in the action. And I decided to apply for a position at less money just to get my foot in the door and get some experience in project management. So the funny thing is, with new entry-level positions, they're entry-level positions, but they want someone with experience. So I had to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel, let's say.
Yeah, you maybe, quote unquote, took a step back or felt like that at least, but you knew what you were doing. So good.
Yeah. So it ended up working out. So that company actually did gas stations in the GTA. Their main headquarters was in BC, but they had a satellite office here. So it was really just me as a project coordinator and the project manager, and then occasionally they would come. But I got a lot of experience on site doing exactly what I wanted to be doing, walking around, seeing how things get built. It's very interesting how a gas station goes together.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right? And the project manager who had hired me, he kept talking about this company called Govern Brown and Associates.
Okay.
They're based in Toronto. They also have some satellite offices across Canada. Large company. They got bought by a US-based company called Structure Tone now. But he was the one that kept telling me about it. So I kept doing some research. I was like, this is pretty interesting. Looks promising. They do a lot of interior fit outs for office spaces, for retail and hospitality. So after 8 months of being in that position and I wasn't really just a project coordinator, it was more of a do everything because it was a small office. So do admin, do AP, do AR, that kind of stuff. I decided to apply for a position that they had at Govern Brown. And I actually asked my boss, the project manager at the time, for a referral. And because of his referral, I was able to get my foot in the door over there. And that was 2015.
And what was the role?
So the role there was also project coordinator, but it's just larger jobs, different operation because more corporate structured, lots of, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects.
And then how long did you stay there?
6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's almost current.
Almost. Yeah.
So how long ago did you? Till 2021.
Yeah, so I went from June of 2015 to June of 2021.
When did you start getting interested in like income properties or real estate investment? Like, where does that enter the picture?
So that's really started, I would say, January of 2021.
Oh, wow. Got it. I feel like you've done a lot since then. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that where we cross paths at some point?
That happened later in the year, actually.
Okay.
Not too far off.
Okay.
So January of 2021, right, that was in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
That's kind of what pushed me over the edge to leave.
Pushed everyone over the edge.
Pushed everyone. But even before COVID, I started having some cracks in the foundation. I think everyone kind of with an entrepreneurial.
Yeah. So just the corporate life was.
Yeah. It was a continuous loop that seemed like it was never going to end. Part of the problem was that I reached sort of my goal of being project manager,
Yeah, I got it.
right? After some, and once I reached that mountaintop and I didn't see what the next peak was, I had nothing to chase, and it just got monotonous.
Life gets dull quick.
Right. So the cracks started forming in 2019, really. I remember sitting at home with my then fiance. Yes, because that was late 2019. So then fiance, and just like starting to cry, saying that I wasn't where I thought I should be or who I should be. So like really took its toll. And then of course with COVID, just half a year later, all the uncertainty with that, it just really pushed me.
I remember leaving university, getting a job that everyone told me was the best job ever. I was like a programmer at Royal Bank on their Front Street location. And I remember after being there for like 2 months, I started having intense nightmares, like sweating. If I fell asleep, I guess at that point, Carol was my fiance maybe at that time, I guess. And just having complete, absolute terror, panic attacks. And I was just freaking out that this was my life. Like I had gone to university, got the quote unquote good job, and my days were horrible. I was working on projects that were like literally computer code that was written in, 25 years earlier, and I was doing maintenance work on it. It was just like a complete horror show. And I thought, oh my gosh, how have I done everything right? And my life sucks. And when I say right, I mean quote unquote right, Right. So I can totally relate to that. So then what did you do? You just got up and quit?
No, I actually had to grind through it once I made the decision. So I made that decision, and I remember very vividly. So I was sitting in the office, working late again by myself, and it just really, everything just kind of like came and hit me all at once. I can get emotional now talking about it, but yeah, it just came.
Shit.
It just came. I can hold it together, but it just came and hit me all at once. And basically, the decision that I made was, they say, or Tony Robbins says this too, is that a decision happens in an instant, but it's the build up to that decision. So everything just compounded and built up to that very moment where the decision was made. And it's like, if I don't see myself in this position for the next 35 years, because I was 30 at the time, why next year, next month, next week? Might as well make a change.
So what did you start planning then? Like how to make an income without this job?
That's kind of like what spearheaded, right? Because January 2021, that led me, I was doing a lot more research. I'm sure a lot of people who were at home as well were doing research on like stocks, right? And I started following some YouTubers, and then from the stocks,
stock trading, I went down that path. Exactly. Option trading, I went down that path.
Trying to figure that out, right?
Can I make money just staying at home trading?
Right, exactly.
Pork bellies?
Yeah.
I remember I made Carol, like, I guess it was like late 90s, watch a VHS tape of some guy teaching like options trading on pork bellies. And I think she's so great that she like actually watched it with me, although she has no interest in that. Yeah. And I'm like, Carol, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get these pork bellies. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we're not actually going to get them. We're just going to like buy puts and calls and do all these like naked shorts and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I didn't get anywhere with it, but we've all been down that path.
Yeah. So that led into real estate. And then I started following some podcasts, Bigger Pockets being one of the larger ones. So then I went down that road. And it was in June 2021 that I quit. The reason that I picked June 2021 is because we had actually purchased a house, a new build, the previous year in June of 2020. So we closed on it May of 2021. So I needed
you need to qualify.
To qualify and close.
Yeah. Oh, we've all been there, dude. So my wife and I actually left both of our jobs. Oh, wow.
The same month. She left earlier. I left June 21st. Still remember the day. And she went to school for personal support worker.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And maybe about a month after, having watched Bigger Pockets over and over again, so many of the guests that come on, they ask them what books do you recommend, and it kept being the same one. It was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Let me guess, Think and Grow Rich too, maybe? No?
That actually came from you guys.
Oh, okay.
But Rich Dad Poor Dad, that was constant.
Classic.
variable, like
Classic.
common
Yeah.
from all of them. And so that was one of the first books.
Cash
if
flow,
not-
his follow-up cash flow quadrants or whatever it was.
He has
blew
so
my
much
mind.
material,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think at one point I had read like 15 of the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. It just constantly blew my mind. I remember one book pissed me off though. It was a blueprint building book for quitting your job. It was like, don't quit your job without doing this first. And the book was all about building a business plan.
Nobody told me that.
Oh yeah, and well, I just remember. Well, the business plan, the idea of a business plan is kind of like most of them, from what I see, are rather useless because it's not talking about how to get customers. The business plan's more like the opportunity. There's this size of market for this type of work, and if I get 3% of the entire market, our business will be this big. And here's the generic ways I'll go about getting this business. And it's so high level and theoretical. Most business plans to me are just garbage.
I think it's more about defining your avatar.
Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. Whereas like, I just wanted to know, how do I make the phone ring? How do I get someone to send me a text? How do I get a customer to walk in the door? Like, give me the practical steps from A to B to make that happen. And that's what got us down the path of direct response marketing, which we talk a lot about now. And that was the eye opener, because then I didn't have to figure out what a marketing budget was. Like in a business plan, a lot of people will come to us now and say, hey, well, what should the size of my marketing budget be? And then I'll just respond, well, I don't know. How much does it cost to get you a new customer? And then 95% of everyone doesn't know that answer. And I'm like, well, you
Probably
should try
met
to
with a blank stare.
Yeah. I'm like, well, let's try to figure out that answer. And then we can figure out how much to spend to get that person, if we understand how much they are to get, and then how much are they worth to you over the lifetime relationship you have with them. Because if a customer is worth $5 to you because you sell just like, little pens, that's very different than if you're selling like a $50,000 consulting gig, and it will dictate how much you can spend to attract that customer into your life. Right. So those conversations were meaningful to me. These business plans were so theoretical that I was like, oh, garbage. But anyway, back to you. So you go through that, you Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that leads to what?
So that led me to looking at who locally, what options are available as real estate investors. Because that, from a business owner, investor, really was sort of earth shattering to me. It totally blew my mind, and I don't know how many limiting beliefs that book had crushed.
Oh, awesome.
But it was many.
Awesome.
Many. Up until that point, really the only books that I knew were about savings.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of, even at a younger age, I read David Chilton's book, The Wealthy Barber, Wealthy Barber Returns, right? So that's kind of what I grew up on, which is good for being frugal.
It is good if you want to live a frugal life and never really get ahead financially.
Right. So I never, having read those at a young age, I never spent beyond my means saving money. But as far as, getting to the position of being able to travel and do all the things that I would like to do, wasn't going to cut it.
Got it.
And then so having read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that just opened the world of possibilities and opportunities to me, which I'm sure it did for all of those investors on Bigger Pockets and so many others, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at different companies and organizations in Ontario.
Wow, you're very thorough.
That's just my background.
Yeah, no,
project manager, right? You have to be detail oriented, right?
Yeah.
It's that high C.
Yeah. You're definitely the worst investor our team likes to work with, because we're like, oh gosh, who got the engineer? Because here comes the engineer or architect or high C type person who's going to map out all these different criteria. I'm more the type of person that looks at an investment. I'm like, how much does it cost? What's the income? What are the expenses? Oh yeah. Okay, done. Let's go.
Yeah.
Whereas you're the type of person who wants to look at all the details, and that is probably the much better way to do it.
For everything, pretty much, whether buying a car or
got it. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Clothing.
Yeah, I definitely do maybe too much stuff just on feel. Give me some data points, and then looks like it makes logical sense. Let's go.
Yeah.
But okay, so then you started evaluating different things.
So I was doing some different weekend workshops.
Cool.
Looking at the high upfront cost of getting into those kinds of programs.
Oh, got it. So you mean like a real estate training boot camp and stuff like that? Got it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same path that we went down to.
Yeah. So I said, I don't think this is for me right now. Maybe if I get my feet wet and get into a little bit more, it is. But then I came across you guys at Rockstar, and I saw, $50 a month as a starter. And I'm like, and all these classes and everything like that. So I did the starter class, the free class that you have. And I think I had already signed up for you guys before that.
Okay.
And then you offered discount on the enrollment fee or whatever. So I emailed. Yeah,
don't rip me off. I want this deal. Right. Get me this deal.
That's right.
I don't know if you guys are a scam yet or not. Make sure I get this
Being
deal.
the frugal guy that I am, right?
Yeah. And did we honor it, or did we
did.
Screw you?
No, you did. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, so that's
you honored the action takers.
Yeah. Cool. So that's how we kind of cross paths, and then I guess you started taking maybe other classes here.
Yeah. So I met up with Mike DeSormo.
Okay.
And at our initial consultation meeting, I had to sit down. So that's when I started telling him about my background in architecture and being an architectural technologist and having my BCIN. And in that conversation is when the light bulb went off that maybe I should serve investors as an architectural designer.
Cool.
There's a environment for that. There's a need for it. And that's what I did after that. So I opened up that business and started networking a little bit locally in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. And
this is Tri-City Builders.
This is my other company.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So remind me.
So Infinite Design and Consulting Services is the company that I opened to provide the design services. And now that's expanded into also providing the consulting services and in future educational services as well, coaching, things of that nature. And then just through the process of networking, I got linked up from my contact in Kitchener, who is now my business partner as Tri-City Builders, with Danielle Chason, who was a agent here. And because I was having such a hard time as a new entrepreneur with that learning curve and marketing and things like that, and not having followed the steps that you were saying about building sort of a business plan before you leave your full-time job. So she was actually in need of a project manager.
Oh, cool.
And we connected at a function and had an interview with her and her business partners, and she brought me on, and I was there for 6 months.
You were there for 6 months?
Working with her for 6 months on some of her properties that she was rehabbing in Cornwall, North Bay, Sudbury. And that kind of helped expose me to, a lot, because she's awesome. She's an awesome mentor as far as mindset is concerned, and also looking through the lens of an investor versus the lens of my former career, which was more high-end execution, right? High-end office spaces.
Sure. An investor just looking to control their costs. Where's the return coming from? Is this project feasible or not feasible? Where are my risks? What's the downside? And then, so what is your primary business now? Like, where are you focus your efforts today?
Yeah. So I went through a couple other things. She referred me to King Homes, Legal Second Suites. I'm sure a lot of investors in the Rockstar network know. Doing architectural designs for them, right? And was working with Ken Beekendam, the owner there, for 2 to 3 months as a subcontractor. So that was another like supplemental source of income as I'm sort of figuring out this business entrepreneur thing. And ultimately, I decided with the contact, who's now my business partner in Kitchener, to open up Tri-City Builders. So Tri-City Builders is a construction management firm focused on providing services to real estate investors, both on the design and the build side. So I combine both of my backgrounds into that. And then my business partner provides the real estate investing expertise, because that's what he's been doing out in Kitchener for so long. Got it. So he has his initial list of contacts and subcontractors and things like that he work with doing his duplex conversions. And then I bring all of the actual technical execution as part of that.
So what's technical execution? I need drawings for this. I need a permit from the city. Hey, Michael, can you help me get all this done? I bought this single family home. It's zoned in an area where I can do this, but now what do I do? You step in and provide those services?
Even if they don't know what they can do, they can ask us.
So do people reach out to you before they firm up on a property, just saying, hey, I kind of have this thing. Can you look at it to make sure?
Exactly. So we call that a feasibility study.
Okay.
We'll look into...
It's much more technical.
It is, right?
Yeah, that's great.
But basically, you're looking in and seeing what can you do, how do you add the most value to this property. So whether that's a duplex or convert it to a triplex, or you add a garden suite to it, or...
And are some people surprised? Like, do you see some properties where somebody thinks they can only do it as a duplex and you can see a triplex out of it?
Yes.
Does that happen?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'd imagine some people I've found don't have the imagination to see things that a property can present to them. So you'll do that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the background as the architectural technologist comes into play, because the thing about going to college versus going to university is that university, and this is why I chose college, because my grades were good enough to go to university, but college is more focusing on the technical aspects of that side of it, whereas university is more on the theory side of it. Yeah. And I was more interested in how something gets built than I was in thinking about design and aesthetics and stuff like that. So my mentality has always been, how does something go together? What's the best way to optimize the space that you're given and provide the best possible product as a result of that? So I'm very good when we walk through properties at finding ways that are cost efficient to optimize an existing space. So if it's a 1.5 story home, can we convert that half story by adding an addition and extending the roof line to make that its own suite, for example, to turn it into a triplex? So basement, apartment, main floor unit. And then
I feel like your generation of investors like so much more advanced than when we started. And I think that might be because there was probably people doing what you're talking about, but there was no like internet to connect us all. So you didn't hear about the guy, like, for example, Matt James just ripped the roof, or not just, but fairly recently ripped the roof off a house, like with a crane, and then added a second story and put the roof back on. Like, we didn't do that kind of stuff. Like, our creativity was, oh my gosh, we bought this house as a single family home rental, but look, there's like Mohawk colleges down the street. We didn't even realize maybe we should try it as a student rental. Like that was our creativity level back then. And we thought we were like geniuses. You know, we took the one rent and we turned it into a much higher rent with a different application of the same house. Whereas I feel like your generation is just much more advanced.
It could be that, or it could be there's no choice. You have to get creative on the adding of value.
There's definitely that.
Changing numbers, right?
And that's, I think, the evolution just of really, it kind of ebbs and flows. So for example, when we started getting heavy into working with investors in 2007, 2008, interest rates were still high. This would be maybe 06, 07, actually. Interest rates were still high enough that we had to do a rent to own strategy, because we had to be able to have something that allowed us to get slightly higher than average rent, just a couple $100 more than regular rent, and an upfront option fee, because that money would help the property positively cash flow for a little while. But then interest rates dropped so low into the next decade that we didn't have to do a rent to own strategy anymore, because rates were so low. You could literally just straight up rent a house. And then now interest rates then property prices went up so much that even with low rates, you had to start doing like different BRRRR strategies and duplexing, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, interest rates have gone up now. So property prices went up, but now interest rates have also gone up. So now some of the properties you must turn into a triplex, or you have to do the student rental. But I feel like there's so much ebb and flow to this. So in 2024, if rates come down, like a lot of projections seem to say they would be, it's going to open up some opportunities that didn't open up or didn't exist in the higher rate environment of 2022, 2023. So I think as a real estate investor, that's the beauty of real estate. It allows for creativity, but you have to be also expecting it as well. Like, you have to be somewhat fluid with your strategies, because what worked 5 or 6 years ago might not work in this environment today. So you're right. You're kind of just forced into some of this stuff. Yeah. And I think that's where like garden suites and laneway housing and infill projects specifically that are built as duplexes with a garden suite or something like that are going to become mandatory. And you were briefly talking about it. Is that what are you about to embark on a garden suite, or did you just finish one? What were you telling me?
So we actually have applied for 5 permits.
Okay.
In Kitchener, specifically this year for garden suites, all of which have been approved. We have 2 active builds right now. These are customer properties.
So just on the application, did Kitchener give much pushback?
No, they were they're pretty progressive as far as allowing the garden suites. It's more the learning curve on my end.
Yeah.
As what they're learning, their requirements are.
What were the biggest requirements? Was it like some of the setback requirements, or what was some of the biggest things that you learned through that process on those 5?
So part of it is that they're still trying to figure out over the course of the year, right? They've updated the bylaw once or twice so far. So there's been some changes from the submitting of permits at the beginning of the year till the most recent one, which got approved a couple of weeks ago now. As far as their process, so it's not just applying for a building permit. You have to apply for 2 separate permits with them. One is for the planning department called the zoning occupancy certificate. The other one is your standard building permit application. So you have to go through and pass one until you get your the building permit won't be issued until you have that approval by planning. And planning is going to look exactly what you said. The setbacks is one of the major ones. So the lot width also one of them. I mean, there's ways around it. You can go through the minor variance application process, but that adds time and cost to...
Lot width is important because you need a certain amount of...
So you have those, a lot of the properties in Kitchener, especially, I'm sure Hamilton as well, are bungalows.
Yeah.
Bungalows tend to be wider, especially compared to new developments. Then you'll have a 9-foot, let's say, driveway on one side, and then you'll have your side yard on the other. I guess they looked at, I can't speak for them, but I guess they looked at so many of the properties, the lots in Kitchener, and said, here's the parameters where we'll allow garden suites to be built.
Okay, so the width, there's just a certain width of lot that it's allowed.
Yeah, which is 43 feet. So there are circumstances that we've had to go to the Committee of Adjustments to get a minor variance applied for a lot that was around 41 feet wide.
Oh, God.
But it had the necessary requirements for the driveway width, and they also require a walkway on the other side or standalone from the driveway. They can't intersect, which is for fire access. That needs to go from either the street, or if you have a sidewalk, from the sidewalk directly to the front door of the garden suite. So that's another one of the boxes that need to be checked. So if you have a side yard that's less than 4 feet,
you might not be able to.
You might not be able to do it unless you go down the road.
And then what about things on those types of lots? I guess sewage access is okay because you have the driveway. You can get any plumbing you need to these garden suites.
That's been the case so far.
Because I know in Toronto, I know a few people have had to go under homes to get some of the stuff to a laneway or garden suite type house.
Yeah.
But in this kind of thing, you don't need to.
So the ones that we have going on right now, they're all have their own utilities. They're all connected within the private property. None are directly connected to the city.
Does the plumbing go through the primary property as well, or does
it's standalone?
Okay.
So it's its own sewer and its own water line.
Okay.
And it has to be connected outside of the primary home.
Oh, it has to be.
It has to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can't tap into.
Okay, but electrical.
The electrical, well, in all the cases that we've done it so far, we're just adding on another meter. So each garden suite will have its own separate water, gas, and hydro meters.
Okay.
Yeah. And in a couple of cases, the ones that we have on the go now, both properties have been tenanted. So we've had to go around, so up the driveway for the water and sewer. In some cases, as far as 150 feet for the trenching. But if you have the right depth and the right slope, you can get away with a gravity-fed sewer, which basically just means from the garden suite to the street, there's enough slope on it that gravity will take its course. Otherwise, you have to have an injector pump.
Got it. And why are you saying, what was the 150-foot comment?
That from the property line at the front all the way to the demarcation point in the garden suite, which is just the service road.
It's 150
feet. So it's a lot of trench.
Okay.
And I feel like a lot of people don't factor in what kind of cost, time, and then where all that dirt has to go.
Where did you put the dirt? The backyard?
Fortunately, that lot is quite interesting. It's like a T-shaped lot.
Okay.
So we had lots of space in the back to be putting dirt on that very long trench.
Because you're going to put it all back, but you temporarily have to build it up somewhere. Oh, what a pain. And then did you have to tell the tenant, did you have to, I guess the tenants you had to give a notice to that existed in the house?
Exactly.
Hey, here's what we're doing. So could they park on the driveway during this time?
No.
So you got permits for the road, I guess, for them?
So the nice thing in the city of Kitchener, between the months of, I think basically it's the start of spring until the start of winter. So up until November 30th, you can park on the street legally without facing a ticket, which is very nice of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I know you can't do that in a lot of
you can't do that
municipalities.
No.
So that's actually a busy street that it falls on. So fortunately, there's a plaza just across the street that they could park in.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. Look at you taking advantage of the commercial plaza.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
That process took about a week. Could take a little bit longer. The other one that we're working on now, we had to do it in 2 stages. So we dug up the front yard as part of phase 1. We're able to get that past, all those connections that were made past, fill it in, and then do the rest of the trenching. So we can reuse the front yard for all the soil.
And these ones, you're pouring a slab?
Correct.
How deep do you have to go when you pour a slab in Canada?
So the slab that we're doing, on these ones, and all of the permits that have been approved is an engineered slab on grade. So it extends about 12 inches below grade.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. But the entire slab gets wrapped in an R10 rigid insulation. So it helps prevent frost freezing from underneath. That's the intent of it. So that way, the water, when it freezes, the ice will expand.
So what's that? When you're pouring the cement, you actually have this insulation acting almost like a form that you're pouring the cement into?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And am I thinking like a styrofoam type form product? What is this?
You're thinking about ICF, but yeah, I guess the rigid insulation is a similar material.
Okay.
Underneath that, let me just kind of backtrack. So you have a gravel base. So before you do the gravel base, you're going to excavate all of your topsoil and your tree roots. Okay. Because those won't compact; it'll hold water, and that will present.
Does the gravel base have any minimum requirement, or no? That's just
not really. I think a minimum of 5 inches, but probably it depends on the site too and the grading the existing grading that's there, how much you're going to build it up.
Okay.
And how much topsoil you're taking out, obviously. So we've taken around probably about 2 feet of topsoil on each of our jobs. So we've had to backfill kind of around the same. So once that's down, then you start to do your actual wood forms around the perimeter. And then within those wood forms, you're putting in your rigid insulation. And then on top of that rigid insulation, you're putting your rebar and wire mesh.
Yeah, got it.
So the slab around the perimeter is going to be about 18 inches by 18 inches thick. So at the perimeter all the way around, it's going to be wider. And then in the middle, we'll get less exposure to the cold from underneath.
Yeah, got it.
It's only 5 inches.
Oh, really? That's how you do that? Wow. Okay. And then the rest of the build, once that slab's down, the rest of the build's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Have you seen anyone doing, or would you ever consider some prefabricated type garden suite stuff that maybe you're engineering or designing off-site and building and then bringing on-site in components? Or is that something further down the road? Or is it not cost effective?
So I have seen it. I know you had someone on your podcast not that long ago. I can't remember the company name, but there's a lot of
it seems like it's
companies.
getting trendier.
Yeah. I guess I'm more of a traditionalist where I like the stick frame for a few reasons. When it comes to the manufacturer homes, right now they have a certain capacity. Once they hit that capacity, so if demand were to increase, they have to, one, get more facility, more space, more labor, more tools to meet that demand, or they're going to have to increase their lead times. It's one of the other.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. So there's limitations as far as the capacity. So what might be a 3-month build for them right now? What's that going to look like if their requests come in doubles or anything like that? Right.
What about, and then what kind of, go ahead.
So whereas with the stick framing, so traditional construction, you're going to have a lot more variety of contractors to choose from.
More on demand,
Right? Because so you're going to have a pick of the litter, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. You're just going to have a lot more variety to choose from. The other thing is that you can customize your build to fit on that specific lot. Whereas with a manufactured home, they might only have several options to choose from. And the city of Kitchener, I'm sure other municipalities only allow a maximum size of garden suite based on 2 variables, either the size of the main home, which is 50% of the gross floor area. So if your bungalow is 1,000 square feet, the main floor, then you can build a 500.
Go up to 50%.
50%, so you can build 500 square foot garden suite.
Got it.
Now you can add a basement in it too, and you double your square footage, but that's kind of like the general. So up to a maximum of 850 square feet or 80 square meters, whatever that converts to in square feet, that's what they're allowing as the maximum. So if you have a model for a manufactured home that kind of falls with a studio or 1 bedroom at say 400 square feet, and then the next size up is 550, but you can only do a 500, then you're kind of screwed and you have to go with the smaller one. So it opens you up to stick framing for more variety.
And then what kind of stuff on these 2 that are currently in build? You're doing 2 of them right now?
2 right now.
Are they 1 bedroom places? Like what are you building?
So both of them are 2 bedroom, 2 bath.
2 bedroom, 2 bath.
Yeah.
Wow.
So going back to the lot, so the lot for the one that's 660 square feet, it's shaped like a parallelogram. It's an interior lot, but rather than a rectangle, it's a parallelogram. So all of the property lines are slightly angled. So you can't put a square or a rectangle in the backyard. Otherwise, you're going to have a ton of wasted
Yeah.
space on more than one side. So what we ended up doing, or I did, is in the design is to shape it like an L. So you're only losing space at the top of the L, which would be your rear property line, and then you have a courtyard area within the L.
Yeah,
so it really maximizes the space from the lot, and then at the same time it separates itself from the bungalow.
Yeah.
So there's a separate backyard for the main floor tenant.
Oh, that's really cool.
So there's just more options.
Who's doing this? So this is an investor that had this property that said, hey, Michael, I want to maximize, I want to generate more revenue off this thing. And they hired your services.
Exactly.
And they're hiring your design company, or they're hiring Tri-City
They're hiring
Builders?
Tri-City Builders, and Tri-City Builders is the one that's doing the design build on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess anything that you've seen so far is pushback on the existing tenants in that property. It's a different structure altogether, but I guess some of them could say, hey, well, my backyard now is cut in half.
So on this one, with the one I was just describing, we were already in the planning stages with them before it was leased. So they had it.
You'd tell them.
Exactly.
And I guess then if they knew up front, it's their decision, so they didn't really care, I guess.
Right. Whereas with the other one that we have going on, it's a completely different story because it was already tenanted. And then,
I guess the bylaws around this are all gray and a mess.
Yeah. So there was a few obstacles to get through with the other build and the tenants there, where they called bylaw and
I guess they could push back, but really they can't push back on much, I don't think. You have the property, the bylaws exist to build it. You're allowed to build it.
Yeah.
The tenant board doesn't even know about this stuff yet, but I'm sure the tenant board's going to have some weird and wacky and wonderful new crazy things that get added to it for this kind of situation.
Yeah. So the recommendation is have a discussion with your tenants at the planning stage beforehand, so they know that it's coming.
Yeah.
And when the real messy work is happening, particularly the water and sewer, we'll try to minimize ourselves the downtime when we have to do the connection from the new to the old.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Damn.
But if it's possible to find them temporary accommodations elsewhere for that portion of the work.
Oh God, have you seen on housing in Ontario? Yeah, sure. Okay. Dreamland. But yeah, I get it. But some of us have rental properties like Nick and I with tenants in there for so long that have a massive lot that we could easily build a garden suite in the back. And we never had the discussion with the tenant in there because they've been in there for like a decade longer. So, there's weird stuff, I guess, that's going to happen over the next few years.
One thing I would say is if anyone is planning to do a garden suite and they just pick up a new property and they duplex it first, so we've done that a couple of times now.
Okay.
One is for our me and my business partner investment property. Since we upgraded all of the plumbing, so water and sewer, to the main house as part of the duplex build, we also did the water and sewer rough-ins for the garden suite at the same time. So before it was tenanted.
See, it really helps to be thorough, engineer, architect, project planner type.
And what the city allowed us to do, which is something that they were still having internal discussions on, was to do a completely separate water and sewer line through the basement of the home. So completely independent of the main home's water and sewer, but just to be able to go through it while we had the slab opened and we were doing the rest of the upgrades to existing home. So we didn't have to bother with trenching around the outside.
Got it.
So if that's a possibility for people, I'd say
it makes sense. Now knowing this stuff, we can all make better decisions on doing things when you're changing up a property or doing a renovation on a property.
Now the caveat to that is that you need to have your building permit for that work to happen for the garden suite. So if you're going to do your rough-ins for the garden suite, you need to have your building permit in. So basically we did the permit drawings for the duplex and the permit drawings for the garden suite almost simultaneously.
And you're doing all of these so far in the Tri-City area. Correct. There, Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo. That's going to be your area of expertise. I imagine over time you're going to go outside of that area at some point.
That's the goal. But right now, this is where
there's enough there.
There's enough there until we scale. I think a lot of
investors are just finding you word of mouth kind of thing.
Word of mouth. We're doing a lot on social media. We're posting crazy all of our progress photos, videos.
Are you talking about your book here? Not yet?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. That's going to come?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did actually release it on Kindle, so I did a bit of marketing promotion for it now, but the paperback version is coming out too, so I'll have to ramp that up. I'm just trying to provide value to people.
Who's doing your social media?
Just me.
You are?
Yeah,
what's the
me.
social media? What is it, an Instagram handle or TikTok? What are we talking about?
Instagram.
What is it on Instagram?
So Tri-City Builders Instagram is We Build, ADUS, ADUs.
ADUS. And then that's cool. So, and then you're going to have awesome raw material to put on your Instagram account with some of these builds now. So now you have a lot of stuff. People love watching something get put together.
Yeah. So I did a montage from weeks 1 to 7 of the build progress for that L-shaped garden suite I was saying earlier.
Cool.
To show it at each stage. So they can see in about a minute and a half is how long the video was, up until the point where it had been shingled.
So like almost like a time lapse kind of thing?
No, it wasn't a time lapse. I had set up the time lapse camera, but I didn't hit the record button there or whatever. It didn't come. It was
that kind of stuff. Everyone has the best ideas on time lapse, and if you capture it and make it work, you're a miracle worker, I swear.
Yeah. So it did the booklet that it came with. It didn't come with instructions. So I had set all the intervals up. I set the schedule Monday to Friday, 8 to 5.
You didn't hit record.
There was no record button in the setting. The record was hold down the OK button for 3 seconds, which I found out after. So
classic. We've all been there.
All that time is lost. But I did capture it at each stage just with my
just
with my phone, just doing.
But going forward, the time lapse would be cool.
So the second one, I made sure that it was.
So you have that one going now. Yeah, cool. And then what's the story with why did you write this book? Like, what's the name of the book? And is it tied in with garden suites specifically? What's the purpose of the book? Can you share this?
I can. Yeah. So it's not meant for garden suites specifically,
this is just
but it
rehabbing in general?
Rehabbing in general. So whether people are doing a duplex or they're doing a bathroom remodel, kitchen remodel, doing a rental unit remodel, or building a garden suite or doing development, this is basically compressing all of my time and experience as a construction manager, project manager for the construction management company, and my current knowledge being an investor into what I would like to think is a manual to help them plan and manage their property.
So basically, it's your analytical mind looking at all the mistakes that people like me make and say, hey, Tom, why didn't you read this book before you started on this project?
That's what spurred reading the book, but it's not what went into the book. What went into the book is all my experience and just trying to communicate it less technically, more in a way that the average investor and homeowner even could understand it. So
Rehabber Secrets, the essential strategies every real estate investor needs to plan and manage successful property rehabs. Yeah, very cool. So when is this going to be available as it's available as Kindle, and it's going to be available as paperback soon as well?
Yes.
When is it?
By the end of the month.
End of the month. Yeah. So end of November 2023?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, cool. Yeah. Congrats, man.
Eventually there will be an audiobook version.
Yeah. This is a lot of work to put together. So
that's actually the second book.
Yeah. Remind me the first one. The first one was, I forget what was the topic. It was
rehabbing your way to wealth.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the subtitle to that, basically just the top mistakes that investors make.
Yeah, that's right.
To maximize their returns and avoid getting burned.
Yeah.
So there's 10 mistakes in there, common mistakes that people will make, and how to avoid them.
Yeah. What is the number one mistake people make?
I think it's unrealistic expectations.
Time or money, both?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. How long does it take, and how much is it going to cost me?
On every rehab project, whether it's your own home or an investment property.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first book. That's more of the here's the problem, and then this book is more of the solution.
Where are you finding the time to write these books?
You make the time for it.
Are you carving out time every day?
Well, having started Tri-City Builders at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of build up to actually getting jobs. So I was using that time.
Okay, cool.
To write it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I started writing it December of last year. Went through, 4, 5, 6 maybe different iterations. So the book that's here now is completely different from what I started with. And the Kindle came out at the beginning of July. So I spent about 6 months on it.
So we're 2023. You quit your job it was like June 2021. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. June 2021. So we're just over 2 years. You're at the beginning of this, but you're doing the right things. You got your second book out. You've been exposed to a bunch of different people already. You're settling in on your niche. You're doing what you like to do. At this stage in business building, there is a lot of pain. Cash flow management is like initially non-existent, then it's very choppy until it gets consistent. You're going through a lot of stuff, but when you stick with the path that you're on and build a good reputation like you are, I think there's just going to be a lot of good things ahead of you, Michael. It's just a journey. Like this is not an easy path you're on, which I think you know.
Well, it goes back to Rich Dad, Poor Dad as well, because what does Robert Kiyosaki talk about? He talks about delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, I put myself in a position where I had a healthy nest egg, leaving my full-time job.
Oh, shit. You're one of the few, dude. Way to go.
Where I could afford myself the time and not have that kind of pressure to, it's kind of good and bad at the same time, because I had a nest egg to fall back on, right? So it didn't give me.
You don't have that burning.
Exactly the same need.
Burn the boats behind you.
Yeah.
How did you manage to save up with a nest egg? Was there a simple strategy? Were you just taking a percentage of your income coming in and saving it all the time? How did you get to that point? Because that's pretty young to have some savings.
So that was part of it. The condo that I had in Oakville, I bought it in the start of 2016. So that helped. I fully renovated it myself. And when I sold it for almost double.
Oh, good for
what
you.
What I bought it for. So that went towards the down payment for the new house that we went into, and then whatever was left over. So I put the 20% down. Whatever's left over, I had that in my account. I ended up, after leaving my full-time job, we went down to one car. So I sold my BMW because it was just sitting.
Good for you.
In the garage anyways. And then in 2017, I had bought a pre-con condo in Mimico, or Humber Bay Shores, I guess, specifically, with the intent to move into it, because it would have been a step up from the Oakville condo, closer to where I was working at the time, which was heavily in Toronto. And just life happened, and that, things changed. My company had opened up an office in Kitchener, and that's actually how we
that's how you started out there,
because we couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah, got it. Good for you. And now I guess, looking back at your corporate world, you're pretty new into kind of being on your own, but it has been 2.5 years. What are your thoughts? How's it going with your own evaluation?
So the growth has been slow in my eyes, but that's just my personality type, that type A personality.
What are you measuring growth by? Financially? Opportunity?
Yeah. More of just a return on the time.
Oh, God.
It's been invested,
Dude, the first 5 years that we started this business, I think until the 3-year mark, it honestly just felt like, what are we doing? I think we're just losing money for the first 3 years, because so much was invested back into the business.
And then you have all of those self-doubts. It's like, was what I'm doing going to work?
I don't know. For whatever reason, Nick and I didn't really have the self-doubts. I don't know why. Maybe that's stupidity. It was just stubbornness and stupidity that was just it was never, even when the finances really we weren't getting ahead, and I was leaving a pretty high income job, there was never an analysis of, I'm not matching what I used to make. It was more just we got to keep going. How are we going to do this? We just got to keep going. It was never, someone else asked me that recently. And I thought, we never had a self-doubt. Maybe we're just arrogant assholes or something, but it was never self-doubt. It was more just
you had the confidence in yourself.
I guess just confidence that we would just keep working. I don't know. Both our parents, that was one thing we took from our parents. They're just hard workers. But now looking back, I would say that was perhaps a little foolish, especially with my wife at home, not working, 2 kids, mortgage on the house. Looking back, that probably looks way too risky, but I'm almost glad I didn't look at it as risky at the time. The life
paid dividends, obviously.
It's paid amazing dividends, and I just don't regret any of it. I think it would have been more risky to stay in the corporate job I was at and then have a single source of income, and then you lose that at a certain age. And how do you replace that? Well,
exactly, yeah.
But I do look back now going, wow, okay, that was a bit of a wild run. And until about the 5-year mark in business, I don't think there was really a moment where we could say, there's a little bit of money in the bank. Maybe we can take a little extra. I think it took us, and I know every business is different, but it was 5 years until it was really kind of and I'm not saying we were just raking in money then and it was we're on easy street. It was just, there's a little bit extra beyond what we need to live our lives. I
think a part of it too, not just monetary, it's more the validation as what I'm doing working, especially when it comes to something like this, because this is niched way down. So I couldn't really, they exist, but just people, coaches, that are teaching investors how to manage their projects, whether that's self-managing or even managing a general contract. It's all the same to me, but just part of that process.
Yeah, but you're young, you have lots of energy, you like this stuff. The world is your oyster, Michael. It's going to be interesting to see over the next few years. What do you think the biggest opportunity for investors over the next 10 years is right now? Is it what you are doing currently?
I think so. Yeah. Additional dwelling units, if they want to invest here, for sure. I think that's the path forward.
I agree.
Certainly the government policy would suggest that.
And I think the nice thing about that is that the big builders aren't going to play in this space. It's too small for them. And the very beginning investor who's just going to buy a built rental property isn't really your competition either. So if you are able to do this kind of stuff for yourself and for clients, there's going to be more people doing it, but it's not going to be heavy competition because what you're doing with garden suites and stuff is a little bit advanced for most residential real estate investors, and it's too little for the big home builders to compete at. So I think you're kind of in this sweet spot where, although there will be more people, definitely more contractors doing what you're doing, I just think that there's this sweet spot where the competition, there's so much opportunity and the competition isn't going to be too heavy. And there's going to be a lot of people who do a bad job at it, don't do it right, and they're going to get a bad reputation really quickly, which is going to open the door for you to build your reputation over years and get more and more referrals and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I definitely want to offer investors sort of a variety of options if they want to learn and they're more DIY and they have that interest in the construction. Something that they can pick up and read or get coached on or consulted on by me for that. Or if they're more hands-off and passive and they're too busy with family life, their full-time job, that they can hire a company like Tri-City Builders to take it from inception to completion.
And are you doing some of that education stuff now? Someone reaches out to you and says, hey, Michael, I just really I bought this thing. I just want the consulting part. That's still an active part of what you're doing.
That's what Infinite Design and Consulting has transitioned into now.
Okay. And you have different packages for that, or is it custom?
That's still early stage, but what I want to turn it into is a package that will almost like a third party project manager where whether it's once or twice a week, help them through the process from each week for their project. So if they're doing a duplex conversion and that project's 12 to 16 weeks, then I'm there helping, coaching them through whether that's a tendering process or reaching out to general contractors, gathering quotes, reviewing quotes, putting together a scope of work even before that and a schedule, or the actual managing process, which most of the work is done in the planning and hiring process of managers. But after that, there's still managing of their work, making sure that they're on time and on budget and so on. So that's going to be sort of the middle ground between something like this and maybe courses in the future.
Excited for you, man.
And then
great.
And that business. So I'm, in the trenches every single day, living what's being taught in this book, right? So over time, we'll continue to refine and deliver the message in a more clear and concise way that hopefully can help.
It's a good time to come across you. You're hungry, you're young doing this stuff, you're in the trenches doing it. It's a great time. So, but your contact info, anything else you want to share before you hand out your contact information?
So we could talk about this. On this past Saturday, actually, we had a property tour that we did of our 2 active garden suite builds. A lot for investors, some are homeowners as well. So agents, mortgage brokers showed up. There wasn't a ton of us, maybe 24 people at most. I don't have a huge network yet. I'm hoping that
real estate isn't like hot and sexy at the moment either, Michael.
Yeah.
So if you got that many people showing up in this era, you're on the right path.
Yeah. So that was actually the real first presentation that I had outside of probably school. So
congrats.
I was both nervous and excited for that.
And you took people through both of those projects?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah. So we started with just a little bit about what garden suites are, how they came to be, what the benefits of them are, who they could serve. Then went into the technical side, like we talked about here. Here we just I gave you a brief glimpse of what the city's looking for, but the 2-part permit process, one for the planning, one for the building. Then we went and covered build costs, build timelines, what's realistic. Talked about what to think as far as build costs for things like site logistics, your scope of work.
Oh, so you broke it all down for me.
I did.
Is there a price per square foot that you can hone in on yet, or is it too difficult and too custom?
So until we finish the 2 builds that we have now, that will really help. No,
yeah. Okay.
But I lean on the side of conservative when I'm putting together the budgets, right? I'd rather be.
So what would you guess right now?
So between $350 to $400 per square foot plus tax. That's with our CM fee on it, of course, for just the build of the garden suite. But then you have the costs of all of the site work that's going to be required as part of the construction. So if you have to do a driveway widening,
sure,
right, the extension,
walkway,
regrading the walkway, all those kinds of things. Fence, if you want to separate some of the areas.
Yeah, they're
off,
separate from
like
the
that.
structure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I show that as a below the line cost as a separate price, but that sort of averages out. It's hard to also calculate it as a square footage based on the size of the garden suite because it's based on the lot. But that's about another $50 per square foot. So we broke all that down, broke down the timelines. A traditional new build home is going to be at least 9 to 12 months to build. Right now, we're on track to do the first one that's further ahead in about 5 months. We're really pushing the envelope on it, but 5 to 9 months is something that would be realistic. So yeah, we really went over all that, and then they got to see it on site and ask questions.
And are you going to do those again?
Definitely.
And just announcing on social media, on your Instagram handle, perhaps?
That we're probably going to connect with some real estate investors that have more influence, more of a social media following, and try to link up with them so we can get the word of mouth out as well. Yeah.
And then you're going to hand out a URL. Is that?
Yes. So that's this package here. So
okay.
This is a bonus that I gave to everyone who participated as part of that property tour, just as a thank you. I wanted to deliver an extra bit of value. So actually 3 lucky ones got pre-release.
3 lucky ones. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. We have 3 lucky winners here. So they got your book.
They got through. The pre-release copy of the book. So hopefully they can take advantage of that. And then they all got a copy of this, not just the slide deck that we reviewed as part of my presentation, but I also gave them samples in the form of a scope of work, of budget.
Oh, awesome.
And then of a sequence of construction activities.
Oh, man.
So they have that as a reference. I said, even if you don't choose to work with us, at least you can use these tools to help you, plan.
That's huge. And that's what you're offering people?
That's what I'm offering people.
Oh, so where can, if someone wants that stuff, where do they get it?
So they can go to realestaterehabbers with an S.
Okay.
.com/garden suites. Fill in your name and email, and you'll be greeted with a thank you page. The thank you page will just let you know that an email is coming, so double check your inbox or your spam folder, and that will contain a Google Drive link, and on that Google Drive we'll have all of these documents that people can view and download. And
awesome. Okay. If you're driving while you're listening to this, we'll link to it in the show notes of this episode as well. So it's realestaterehabbers, correct? .com/garden suites.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
if you just go to realestaterehabbers.com, I have a ton of blog posts there covering all kinds of different topics, property rehabbing related, that people can consume as well. And then on there is all my social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
awesome.
All there.
Yeah. Michael, this is really cool, man. You've done a lot in a short period of time. The next few years are going to be super interesting. Excited to see what you continue to do. And the raw material you're going to have on all these builds over the next few years is going to be huge, because you're going to have stuff that not too many people have, and you're going to have done these things already. That's going to generate a lot of new business for you.
Yeah. So I definitely don't want people to underestimate the value of these.
It's huge what you've put together there.
Yeah.
Like the third, what was the last one you said? The sequence of events?
Of construction activities. Yeah.
That's a huge thing. I don't know if you'll be always sharing that on your website. So I have a sneaky suspicion you'll be taking that down at some point. But Michael, super cool, man. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thank you
for having me.
And the URL, realestaterehabbers.com/garden suites, on Instagram at WeBuildADUs. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.